Hello, moving on then to Unit 2 in the English Literature section of the AQA series of papers. We come to poetry across time. Now, the key things about this exam is that it's an hour and 15 minutes long and split into two sections. Section A requires you to compare two poems. Section B requires you to look at a poem for the first time and analyze it. So the amount of time that you're going to spend is dependent on the marks on each. So section A is worth 36 marks and section B is worth 18 marks. However, section B is going to involve at least 5-10 minutes reading time because you're seeing something for the first time. So that's going to bring that up to 30 minutes and you've got 45 minutes for section A. Now, the best way, I think, and obviously remember everyone's got their own techniques, whatever works for you, do that. But if you aren't very sure on the main things to pick out for poems or poetry analysis, should I say, then I would definitely recommend SMILE. That's picking out the structure and the meaning, the images, the language and the effect on the reader, and all of these structure, images and language are all supporting meaning. Okay, so you think of meaning as the king here. Meaning is the most important thing that you're going to pick out, and then everything else kind of supports the meanings, apart from the effect on reader. Obviously it's just kind of an annex, just thinking about what it gets us thinking about, or the effect that something would have on us from that. So if we look at the mark scheme very quickly, just kind of minimize this for a second. If we look at the mark scheme very quickly, we'll see why I've picked SMILE as the thing to go for. Now, this is going to be an essay. Both are going to be essays. So in an essay, obviously, you're going to be writing paragraphs, PEE or PEA, point evidence explain, or point evidence analysis, whichever way you've been taught. That's a common thread through all your writing, and the analysis is a common thread through, again, all your English writing. What's specific to this, if we look at it, is the AO2 here. This is more specific to poetry. And this is where SMILE is more specific, should I say, to poetry, the way that's been set up. The skill is the same in all your English analysis, but I've structured SMILE to be similar to AO2 in particular. So if we look at AO1, respond to text critically and imaginatively, select and evaluate relevant textual detail and support interpretations. That basically means you can read and respond, begin analysing the text with imagination. And imagination in that sense doesn't mean like you're being creative, it just means that you've actually thought about things and then put them down. Select and evaluate relevant textual details. It basically means pick up points and support them. So this is the PE of that whole PE or PEA thing. This is your point and your evidence. That's the skill there, being able to do that. Now AO2 is explain how language, structure and form contribute to the writer's presentation of ideas, themes and settings. So the main thing for SMILE, as I just mentioned, was meaning. Okay, so here it says how they contribute to the writer's presentation of ideas, themes and settings. So the first thing you need to know is you need to know the ideas, themes and settings and how this actually comes across, and that all comes under meaning, not settings naturally. Settings actually goes into images, but the ideas and themes are the most important thing, and that's what we're going to pick out. The rest of it, language, structure and form, how do they support that? So in the language we have obviously the words and techniques that are used. In the structure it's basically the shape or the use of punctuation at certain times, or the caesura or breaks, or the rhyme, whatever it is that goes into the structure, and how does that help us understand the meaning, etc, etc. And lastly, the idea of form, I just kind of put that in with structure because obviously it's looking at the way it's written. So looking then onto AO3, make comparisons and explain links between texts, evaluating writers' different ways of expressing meaning and achieving effects. The reason that one is already kind of part of your skill is because that's just comparing and analysing. That's all it means, comparing and analysing and looking at the effects. So you know in analysis you've got to always say the effect on the reader is, or the effect on the audience is, or this makes us feel, this makes us think, etc, etc, etc. So the only one there you see that's really specific to poetry is actually encapsulated through SMILE. SMILE gives you all of this, and the AO1, AO3 is just your ability to write and begin analysing, whereas AO2 is specific to the form of poetry, at least through SMILE anyway. So remember as well, you'll notice that all the SMILE video tutorials I do, I never really talk about the background of the poem. I never say the writer was from here and they felt this and this happened to them when they were a kid, etc, etc, etc. Not because it's not interesting, it is very interesting, but it's not something you get marked on. As you see, AO1, AO2, AO3 did not involve that. AO4 does. Relate the text to their social, cultural, and historical context and explain However, if you look in the mark scheme, this unit does not test AO4. So that stuff, while useful or interesting, isn't necessarily going to be what gets you marks. You must stick very firmly with the analysis. So let's look then at the top band mark scheme for section A and see whether SMILE satisfies it. So remember, all I'm asking you to do is be able to do PE and know that you're going to analyze, and then use SMILE on top of it, and let's see if it hits all the criteria. 6.1, insightful exploratory response to the text. That just means you go all the way through the text and come up with lots of ideas. And the way I set up SMILE in the videos, you'll notice this one's 9. I've set it up here for the unseen, which I'll come to in a second, but normally I tell you to do 3, 3, 3, 3, 3 for each, because that hits the exploratory sense, okay? And it's more insightful. Rather than saying there's one meaning, you say there's 3, it's going to be a more insightful response. Close analysis of detail to support interpretation. Well, we're picking up 3 from each, so again, that's close analysis, but obviously you have to be able to pick that out from any poem that you're studying. Evaluation of the writer's use of language and or structure and or form and its effects. So again, that's been hit here in effects, language and structure. I include form and structure as well, the way we kind of sum this up to give a SMILE. Convincing imaginative interpretation of the ideas or themes. That's why we pick out 3, to try and be more convincing, to have a range of ideas come through. Evaluate comparison of ideas and or meanings and or techniques. So we look at the language techniques used and we look at the ideas and we compare them across a poem. So again, SMILE helps you do that. Evaluative selection of range of telling details in comparison. That's down to your skill at picking up the most useful things, but obviously picking out 15 for a poem is going to put you in good stead. So I hope that shows the relevance of SMILE to section A. So we look very quickly at section B, the unseen, scrolling all the way down. Okay, less that you're being marked on because you don't have much time. Insightful exploratory response to themes, ideas. 2 meanings actually going to do that. Perhaps 3 you want to add to it. Close analysis of detail to support, so you're picking out the quotations. Evaluation of the writer's use of language and or structure and or form and the effects. So structure, images, language, all of that is going to be relevant there. So you see it's a slightly easier question to respond to, and that's going to help us to understand how we go about answering it. If you prepare yourself with these, or even if you see an unseen poem and you look at these, you're going to know what's going on. So we look then at the question paper from last year, and let's just see whether this would satisfy. I'm going to go through maybe 10 just to show you. Compare the ways in which the poet presents powerful characters. So here we could actually looking at the images and the language and how they're actually presented through what they're actually doing. Compare the ways strong emotions are presented. Well, that would come under one of the meanings. Compare the way that nature is presented, again, meanings. Compare the ways the feelings are presented about a place. So obviously that would be in the meaning, and the images, because it would do with the set. That's to do with the setting. Compare how poets present the effects of conflict. So we could look at the effect on reader or the meaning, whichever one's going there. Compare how poets present the experiences of the soldier. So the meaning would be an experience and the effect on the reader. Compare how the poets use the language. So it would be under language. Compare how they portray emotions. We've done that one already. Yeah, so that's all of them. So you can see SMILE, if you've got the skills for SMILE, basically whatever it asks you in the question, you just support it with everything else. So if we look at this one, compare how the poets use language to present feelings in Manhunt. So how did language present the meaning? How's it supported by the images? And how's that also supported by the structure? But your main focus is going to be language, and your other main focus is going to be to support, your main focus is language to support the meaning. And that would be the start or the build of your essay there. And that's what you really want to do. So hopefully that shows you why and how SMILE is relevant. But I really want to show you why it's useful in the unseen. So this is the paper. I haven't read this poem. I'm just trying to read it quickly now. Okay. Okay, so I'm not really reading it to try and understand there. What I'm trying to do is I'm just looking at smile points, because remember, that's what I'm going to get marked on. I'm just going to marked on my ability to analyze. So if I can do this, however well I get the poem is secondary to how well I can write about it. I'm not saying it's not important, and I'm not saying this cursory glance that I'm giving it is respectful to poetry, not at all. But remember, you've only got 20-25 minutes to do it, so let's just try and get the marks now, and then read poetry for enjoyment in obviously your own time. And I do hope you do. It's a great way of expressing everything. Okay, so structure. So straight away, if I want to talk about structure here, I can talk about the use of dashes. I can see there's several dashes, so that's obviously going to be putting in like an adjoining idea or an adjacent idea, and just showing some kind of idea level on something there. I can also talk about there's two different, I'm presuming there's two different stanzas, so in the breakdown of the two different stanzas, it will probably allow me to talk about two slightly different moments or issues, because that's what normally happens stereotypically. Meaning, well, for meaning, I'm going to have to pick out some kind of theme. So obviously I've got the title, which gives me a great help. Always look at the title. This one says slow reader, so this could be about a learning difficulty or someone who doesn't want to learn, etc. So slow reader, immediately I've got the idea of someone sighing and shaking their head, so maybe this person doesn't enjoy reading. And then I've got straight away after this, he goes with the toys. So my first meaning would then be something to do with like learning difficulty or not wanting to learn or not enjoying learning. And my second meaning would be obviously responsibility. Perhaps this person feels some kind of responsibility to teach the child something, or perhaps if we got someone looking at them, it might actually indicate, this is again without reading it, so forgive me if I'm completely wrong, but the idea is that it has to be about what I can justify, not necessarily what's going to be taken in by this. So the second meaning could be that we're looking at, maybe that they're all more creative, and maybe we'll accept that, or the kind of the disappointment could be from the parent, whatever it is, because he'll never run quite free again, and maybe there's kind of a burden placed on the child, etc. Who knows, from this parent or uncle or whatever it is. Images that we get then, what kind of scenes are actually put to us? Well, we've got this idea, this parental image of being on the knee and trying to do that, or maybe this is some kind of adopted child or something, and that's why it doesn't kind of gel. Maybe that's why the child wants to leave. Again, you'd have to read it to understand. But images, again, we can just look here. Oh, we got the idea of toys, so we got the idea of youth and innocence, and here the word wriggle, that kind of adds to that. So language then, what language do we have? We have like an old man. That's great. That simile really helps us there. And we've got another one there, as grizzly as meat, so I can pick out the similes easily to add that. And I can pick up another piece of word. Now I'm going to look for a word in particular to actually analyze. I'll take this, sighing and shaking, simply again because that shows frustration, etc., etc. So if this is about a slow reader who doesn't really like to learn, then I've got kind of just bear with me so you can see how this is structured together. So my meaning is that this is about a slow reader who can't really learn, or someone who doesn't really want to learn. Now that's emphasized by the structure, because there's two very different parts. One where we've got the effort of trying to make the child read, and then the second one of a child wanting to just run away. That's all supported by the images, like that the child has a weird old wisdom and finds it disagreeable, and also in the language with the use of the like an old man, and perhaps there you can analyze old man and say, like, because some people say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, so maybe that's can be tied in there somewhere as well. So you see, we've linked 3 or 4 of the points there just quite quickly, and that would be like a good third of a page. So if we did that 2 or 3 times, then we'd be laughing. In fact, doing this, I would actually come back and just say there's no point to not actually analyze at least 15 as well if you have the time, but I would presume 2 of each would be the minimum you'd need to actually hit the requirements. So hopefully that was of some use. Next, what we'll look at is answering the unseen question. I'm going to give you some stock phrases, some stock ideas, and then hopefully we'll go along with that, and we'll look at an idea. Remember, I say again, do not read poetry in your own time like this. It's dismissive, it's cursory, it's not really showing any respect to what's written. But what we're trying to look at here is answering the question and getting ourselves marks. So if we do that, as we've just seen with Smile, we're going to be able to pick up many marks, because we have shown some, we wouldn't that wasn't insightful. What I said in my example wasn't insightful. We need to pick up more, but it was exploratory response because we looked at a couple of ideas linked. Close analysis of detailed support. Yeah, I would obviously picked out a load of stuff. Evaluation of writers' use of language. Yep, we looked at language, you looked at structure, and we talked about the effect on the reader. So all that, you can see the relevance. But obviously the more, the better, but that just depends on your time. And I know that's quite a... Again, it's quite a flippant, it's quite cursory. It's not a very respectful way of looking at it. It's not really studying, but it will get you the marks.